Hi, everybody. I'm Sam Laprade. I am so happy you're here. We're going to be talking about my favorite subjects. Of course, that's Fundraising Strategies 101. Katherine McDonald's going to join us, which I'm very excited about. She's got great ideas. I'm hoping today that maybe you can grab just one piece of paper beside you, and maybe make the numbers. I love doing this through webinars, 1 to 5, and just walk away with 5 things today. Maybe you walk away with 3, maybe it's 7, but hopefully you walk away with some stuff you can use right away for your fundraising. I love introducing our friend Owen Wadey. Hi, Owen.
Hey Sam, how's it going?
Yeah, it's great. Owen, of course, is from the Capacity Building Institute, and he has some great stuff to share with us before we dive right in. Over to you, Owen.
Perfect. Thank you, Sam. Hopefully everyone can see that. So I'm with the Capacity Building Institute, which has brought you all here today. We're an organization based in Ottawa. We operate kind of throughout Ontario and Canada generally. And our main goal is to provide training, coaching, and mentorship to support to staff and volunteers in the environmental nonprofit sector all across Canada. So basically, I'm sure many of you are joining us here from nonprofits, and you can relate to the issues with limited resources and training. And so like our goal here is to basically foster leadership within the environmental sector and provide that support. And we provide support to all stages within the sector. So that ranges from executive directors. We have training for board members. We do fundraising training. And then we also have just training for other staff and people who are new to the sector. And our general goal is to train 10,000 leaders of small shop nonprofit environmental organizations in Canada within the next 10 years. So what we believe that Canada's environment deserves all the help it can get. There are so many people out there, so many organizations that are doing great work that just need a bit more support. So that's like our goal is to provide that support. We believe that these nonprofits play a vital role, and we believe that training matters. So we want to provide both the capacity support and we provide the training to ensure that these nonprofits get the work done they want to. And our main focus is small shop organizations. So we're kind of focusing on those organizations that work below about $500,000. And we believe there's so much more to do. We just want to provide the support and the training to the sector. So we offer a range of training courses. You're all here today for the Capacity webinar series. We also have our flagship training course, which is the Capacity Building Certificate Program. And that's a training for sector leaders who are looking, mainly sector leaders from small shop nonprofits, who are looking to grow their organization and really get a foothold. And we're actually recruiting for this year. It's an intensive course, about 6 months of the year from June to December. We have an internship training program, which trains people who are new to the sector. That's run in conjunction with eco-internship. And that's for people who are just getting started out, generally younger people. We do fundraising workshops, and then we also do offer leadership training as well. And most of our trainings, we focus on these 6 core modules. So they range from fund development to organizational culture, communications, and just other essential areas of working in the nonprofit sector. We have a host of lead trainers. So you'll recognize Sam Laprade, who's our host tonight. She focuses mainly on fund development and fundraising. We have trainers to do with engagement organizing. We look at management and executive leadership. And then we also have communication trainers as well. Today's sponsor for this webinar is from Sustainable Philanthropy. And they're a social enterprise formed out of sustainable capacity solutions. And their main game is utilizing their network to help small shop organizations with their fundraising. They provide fund development plans, and just they have like a shared access for fundraising within the sector. And that is more or less all there is from me. If you want to contact us, you can reach out to info@capacitybuilding.ca. We have our next webinar coming up next month on Monday, April 3rd, which is all about nonprofit communication. And every month from here out for the rest of the year, we've got the first Monday of the month, we have our next Capacity Series webinar. So with that, I will hand it back to Sam.
Thank you so much, Owen. And I'm checking out where everybody's coming in from, and I love it. Lots of people coming in and joining us from all over Smiths Falls, in beautiful Halifax, of course, and we're seeing as well Charlie from the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe. Hi, Charlie. Always a pleasure to see you here, and it's great to see you here. So feel free to pop in there and let us know where you're coming from. It is my pleasure to welcome Katherine McDonald. Katherine's from Just Because. Katherine, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Lovely to see you. We have lots to talk about today. I'm thinking to myself, this is going to take more than an hour, Katherine and I talking about fundraising.
Of course. I mean, there's so much to talk about.
So much to talk about. And as I was saying, as we got started, I was suggesting people sort of grab a piece of paper and grab, write down 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or whatever they want, and hopefully walk away with some suggestions that they can put into place right away. Because often we hear these ideas, but then putting them into action is where the sweet spot is. Katherine, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been working in the nonprofit sector for over 15 years. I was one of those high school students that was activist, vegan type person who was annoying everyone to try to make a change in their lives. So I was always very much involved in the environmental and animal rights space. When I finally was able to get involved more directly, I was working in an animal shelter, and I always had this idea of like, why aren't we including fundraising in different aspects of the shelter? And so I always had this kind of fundraising brain. I love talking to people. I always loved sales. So it was really a direct fit. And so later on, after working in the nonprofit sector for a long time, I realized I was missing more of that practical advice. So I did a nonprofit management certificate at the Université de Montréal in Montreal. And that really kind of confounded like all of the stuff that I had been thinking about for years, and allowed me to really have more confidence in implementing a lot of the strategies that I had been thinking about for the last couple of years. And after working in different animal nonprofits, building up their capacity, their fundraising strategies, and often starting from scratch and wearing millions of hats, as I'm sure you guys are all used to doing, I started really seeing that people were reaching out to me and asking advice on how to start a nonprofit, how I did fundraising. And so I started working more with individuals in my immediate network. And then that just led to eventually working as a consultant with different organizations with a specific focus on environmental and animal organizations that I've deemed non-human philanthropy, because it is a very different ecosystem.
It is absolutely beautifully said. And thank you so much for bringing all that talent to us today. And when we think about sort of fundraising strategies, and I'm sure, Katherine, you get the same calls as I do. I'll get a call saying, we want to start fundraising. We want to start fundraising. And when you hear the start part, you're like, it's got layers and layers and layers to it. Or in the case of donors, it's got a big giant pyramid. So start there for us and walk us through some of that great detail.
Well, first of all, when I have the same types of calls of people that are starting and they have this grandiose idea of that it's going to be easy. And as soon as they become a charity, they're just going to have these donors that are going to walk into their doors. And there's so much planning that goes into starting fundraising strategies and even starting new strategies. If you already have some programs that work and you want to kind of get different people involved, the first thing I always recommend to people is to, first of all, do some sort of SWOT analysis. So figuring out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what opportunities exist for your organization or similar organizations, as well as the threats. Because a lot of people don't realize how we don't work in a bubble. We don't work in silos. So you have to understand how your entire organization works before understanding which directions you want to go in. So speaking of the famous donor pyramids, I'm just going to share a little visual with you guys here, just so we can kind of understand what we're talking about. So this is what I use as showing as a donor pyramid. What I often say is, on any form of house or building, usually the door is at the bottom. I mean, there might be some that is on a higher level and there's these weird staircases that get there, but usually you start at the bottom. So the easiest way to get people inside your organization as a donor is often through a one-time gift. I've always heard the OTGs type of, we call them OTGs in some circles. And that's just the easiest way of getting people to kind of start investing into your organization. I often do a comparison of donations and dating in the sense of you're building a relationship with these people. You don't invite someone on a first date to like, hey, let's get married and rent a house together. How about that? That would sound insane. because there hasn't been a relationship that is built up yet. So often the first step that I would recommend for organizations, especially when they're starting, is to build up a one-time donation program. So be it an annual donation or just like a social media type thing where they can get people in the door with an easy one-time gift, and then to slowly bring them up what we call this pyramid. So once they've given once, maybe they give the second year again, you can build up some stewardship and allow them to continue. And then before you know it, you can offer, well, how about doing a smaller gift, but on a monthly basis to give us some stability? Then you might invite them to a gala or some form of big event that is a bigger engagement, but that will allow you to also do other activities around that and build up more of a commitment, but also a sense of belonging to your organization that may be deeper than just a little one-time gift online. Then, of course, we can move up to the major gifts, which is going to be, depending on every organization, the amount isn't really what matters. It really depends on, according to your organization, who is your top 15% of donors. That is usually the amounts we recommend, we consider major gifts. And then, of course, there's the legacy donations, which you can't really go any further than that because you're no longer here. So that's pretty much the epitome of donations for a lot of organizations. So the pyramid, the way it works is that the higher up you go, the less people there are. So that's what this whole arrow is about. You're going to have less people getting more involved, but the amount of the donation tends to grow as you move them up through these different layers of your donation strategy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And when we think about fundraising, often, especially in the kinds of great people we have joining us today from across the country, we sometimes think about grants as well. And we talk a lot about grants last time we were together, which was, if you get a chance, if you weren't with us last week or last month, my apologies, definitely download that webinar because it was excellent. We had some great guests there too. Talk to me a little bit how grants fit in there for you as well, Katherine.
So for sure, grants it's a very specific, and I usually do a whole training specifically on grants because I feel it's a very different ecosystem and different approach. So usually donors, they're not advertising like, hey, I would like to give money, please come ask me to give to your organization. You have to kind of build up and find them and connect with them. Foundations, on the other hand, are actually doing that. They're like, hey, we have money and we need to give it to people. Please fill out this application form. However, it's very complex. And one of the reasons why I hadn't built up as much expertise originally is that before 2018, it was very difficult for a lot of organizations working in the animal rights or environmental space to get charitable status. And if they don't have charitable status, then they couldn't apply to these grant-making organizations for funds. So it's actually quite new that a lot of more small grassroots organizations are starting to apply for grants. And the philanthropic ecosystem is slowly shifting because a lot of the grants before were for more, I would say, popular causes that were health, children, sick children get it, or even worse, in the sense that that's what everyone wants to give to. Big institutions, those were more where philanthropic dollars were going. It was only about 3% of all philanthropic donations that were going towards environmental organizations. That is shifting recently, so I am starting to get more involved in explaining the granting process to a lot of organizations, but it is a very time-consuming process. Because just like donors, you have to build up a relationship with these foundations if you want to increase your chances of getting that grant. It's not this. It's similar to dating in the sense that even if they're on a dating site and they're like, yes, I'm open to dating, you still have to build up some form of relationship before you can ask them out on a date. So before you apply for a grant, I still often recommend doing some relationship building. Add the CEO on LinkedIn, start seeing what kind of thoughts they're working on. What do they share? What thought leadership have they been working on their professional networks? And then there's, of course, in granting, you do the research of how do you identify which grants are accessible to an organization like yours? What are their priorities? How can you kind of see which projects you have that fit with these different grant priorities? There is still a big difficulty with granting, especially for small organizations that don't necessarily have a lot of internal capacity, is that they will usually be very project oriented. They don't offer a lot of operational funds, other than a couple exceptions like the Sustainable Capacity Foundation, which I love for that reason. So there's a lot of limitations depending on your organization. That's why the SWOT analysis will help identify, do we have someone on staff that will be able to fill out the grant applications properly? Or will we have to find someone external to the organization to do that? So I love granting. I've been working in the grant making space, specifically in Canada, for the last 6 years on understanding the trends and what's happening, and it's constantly evolving. But people have to understand that there is a process, and that is why I try to teach that as much as possible, to how to put all your chances on your side.
Beautifully said. Talk to me a little bit. I know we're going to walk through various sort of strategies. Talk to me a little bit about the case for support and how important that case would be as we walk through some of these other ideas on terms of raising money.
For sure. So the case for support is really the first thing you should do if you're starting to launch, well, other than you're doing your analysis and seeing who you are as an organization. The case for support is often a document that is used more internally with all the different people that will get involved in your donation strategy or in your campaign. So it has to outline your values, your mission statement, and your vision. A lot of people forget that the vision is kind of where you would see yourself in 10 years or in 20 years, or whenever you feel you've accomplished your mission. And I find a lot of organizations don't tend to have that thought process. So when would you feel that you can close your doors and say, you know what, our job is done? And a lot of organizations say, well, that'll never happen. Well, then maybe there's a problem there. If you'll never be able to achieve your mission, how are you going to inspire donors towards kind of the end goal of like, we have succeeded? So be it on a smaller scale for this specific project, we want all kids in our region to have access to environmental education opportunities, for example. That's a finite, and it comes down to the SMART goals of it has to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and in a timely manner or in a specific time frame. So when you're building up your case for support, kind of doing all of the thought process necessary so that whoever will be doing your donation collections, whoever will be doing your fundraising, knows exactly the messages that you want to give to your donors to inspire them to take action. It can also identify in your case for support some key objectives that you want to reach. So be it financial. So how much are we looking to raise here? Are we talking 5 million or are we talking 5,000? Of course, a $5,000 campaign might not require a full case for support, but you can have a base case for support that you can use for any of your campaigns to just help support your team in understanding how to approach the communications. So you'll often use that to build up your social media, for example, your social media calendar. You can take tidbits from it. So you're building the platform that will then be used to create other content to support your campaign.
Wow, that's a great summary. Thank you so much. Very, very helpful. So let's take a deep dive in. When you talked about the one-time gifts, what does that look like? Because when I think about that, I think about face-to-face and online and digital. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do that. So walk us through that.
Yeah, so I'll share also another slide of mine that's talking more specifically about one-time gifts. So there's many different opportunities, like you say, face-to-face. So that's usually those annoying people that you meet in the middle of the street and they tell you, hey, would you like to learn more about this organization? So that is one form of face-to-face fundraising that I actually did for many years. And it's very difficult because you're kind of stopping people in the middle of the street, but it's surprisingly actually extremely efficient. And that's why these organizations decide to go with it. So in these different, for example, these 4 examples of strategies, the more you go towards the bottom, the less resources are required. So of course, having a face-to-face campaign requires a lot of people that need to be paid and trained, and it's a lot of time. So of course, it's going to be much more costly of an approach. However, the more we go down, the conversion rate tends to go down as well. So the higher you're up on this list, the conversion rate tends to be higher, but it tends to be more expensive. So that's just kind of how I've organized it to get people to understand where they are and what they're looking to invest in. So for example, face-to-face, when you meet someone and you have that individualized, personalized conversation, you're really able to tap into that person's interests, passions, and get it to become very much of a memorable experience for them. So it's really harder also to say no to someone who you can see is so in love with the cause. It instantly ignites the passion into the donor as well. I remember when I used to do face-to-face, I would have conversations where at the end we were like hugging each other of like, this was amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. So of course it's very expensive in the sense that the time it took me to meet with each individual donor was high. But the chances that I got a donation from that donor were also very high because I was an individual. What they weren't just helping the organization reach objectives, they were helping me reach my personal objectives of reaching, for example, 5 monthly donors today. So it's a very personalized approach that can be very efficient, but it is very costly. So you have to keep that in mind when thinking about which strategies to adopt. You can also think of face-to-face in an event, for example. If you have a kiosk, if you're already there promoting your organization, might as well have some form of donation collecting capacity, be it a donation form or an online portal that people can go and make a donation online, a QR code. But it's always best when there's a person that's behind it saying, hey, like, I'll explain to you the different ways you can support our work, such as making a donation, becoming a monthly donor, a member, etc. So that's like a face-to-face type of strategy. Phone fundraising. So I used to call it telemarketing, and people used to automatically shut down and say, no, I don't want to do telemarketing. They have such a horrible vision of what telemarketing is, but it's one of the forms of fundraising that I actually really enjoy because it does take a little less resources because one person can cover a lot of ground with just a telephone and calling different people. Because you're calling them directly at home or on their phones, you get to reach them a lot easier than on the streets when people are busy walking around. And you can have a list of prospects that ideally have already shown interest in your organization, or else how did you get their phone number? So there's also this new law, the Law 25, I know that has been in place about how to get consent to contact different people in different ways. So you do have to keep that in mind. But if let's say you have a list of donors that have given their phone number through another donation campaign, the phone fundraising tactic can be very well used to build that relationship and to build them up into the donor pyramid. So for example, when I was managing a call center for donations, we would call people that had given a one-time donation, say at least 6 months ago, or sometimes a bit less, but we would definitely give them time between. And we would just call them to say, obviously, a thank you, if that hadn't already been done by email, but a personalized thank you and kind of an update of what happened since. Like, we actually launched such and such program, we were able to fund such and such children to go to school, or we were able to save this many animals from an animal shelter. It's kind of giving them an update at the same time. So once again, relationship building. And then you can ask them to either, would you like to repeat your donation? And often as a salesperson, I always start with like the biggest ask that I think that would be possible. And then I slowly make my way down. So for example, I think the best thing with fundraising is asking for a monthly donation. It allows the money that you're spending on that person doing the calls will eventually bring in more money than it costs, because those recurring donations are going to be costing less and less. So I find monthly donations is the best way to approach like a second donation. And then if ever they're like, oh, I'm not sure, for example, the commitment, etc., then you can ask, well, would you like to make a one-time donation for the year instead? So then you'll get, let's say, $120 one-time donation instead of a monthly $10. And then once again, they can say, oh, that's kind of a lot. Well, would you like to repeat the same donation you did 6 months ago, et cetera, et cetera. So there's different tactics you can use to be able to really get them more involved without putting too much pressure as well. There is that thing of respecting the donor. And then finally, even if they don't give a donation that day, the fact that they had that personal conversation with you has made, once again, the connection more personal. And then you're able to build up a relationship the next time. Maybe you'll say like, okay, well, would you be okay if we touch base again in 6 months? Maybe things will go better. And you once again can build a relationship. And it makes it much more personal.
Absolutely. What else do you want to talk about in terms of one-time gifts? Is there anything else you want to share before we move on to major gifts?
Yeah, so I'll talk the online things. So I think that's a lot more accessible to a lot of maybe small shops that don't have a huge team and that don't necessarily have the capacity to launch these campaigns or the internal knowledge. So peer-to-peer and email campaigns are also very, very useful. Peer-to-peer, what a lot of people don't realize is you're not just launching a campaign on social media and then it's considered peer-to-peer. Building up an efficient peer-to-peer campaign means mobilizing your network to then mobilize their network. So you have to identify who are the key people who have a network of friends, of partners, of people working in the space that might be interested in the space, and giving them smaller objectives. It's really about breaking down a larger objective into smaller and having key ambassadors who will then be able to use their peer network to raise funds. I actually did a little example for my birthday this year. I always do a fundraising campaign for my birthday. And one of my clients, I wanted to show them like kind of an example of like, see how easy it is. Because I mean, if I'm teaching them something and I can't do it myself, I mean, that would kind of be not very nice. So I just launched a small campaign within a week or so of my birthday, just like with among my friends, with an objective of $250. I just wanted to show them that if each individual in your network can raise $250, if you get 10 people to do that, for a small organization for a first campaign, $2,500 is not that bad, especially if they're not doing most of the work. And I actually was able to raise $350 and get them those donations relatively quickly. And so they kind of were able to understand about how if you give everyone a specific objective, it's a lot less weight on everyone's shoulder and you can count on more people, while also getting different people that are outside of your immediate circle to know about your organization. So it can be a really efficient way of also doing some media relations or public relations by meeting new people and bringing them into your circle. The last one that I would talk about is email campaigns. So a lot of organizations use email marketing because it's very accessible. It's cheap in the sense that you can reach a very large number of people for the same cost as sending it to 10. It'll cost you almost the same to send it to 1,000, depending, of course, on your email marketing platform. The thing is, what people don't realize is that the conversion rate, depending on how new your list is, will not necessarily be very high, because it's very easy to ignore an email. So once again, before launching any campaign, you have to make sure you've been building relationships with these people other than asking them for money. So sending them information that is motivating, such as, here are some amazing stories from our let's say beneficiaries, or from our causes. You have to inspire them to action so that when it is time to ask them for something, they've already been building that up for a long time. So all of these campaigns and all of these different strategies are all based on building up relationships with your donors before asking, or while you're asking, if it's in face-to-face, for example, and just understanding where you're comfortable as an individual, what campaigns are interesting to you and according to your internal capacity. You always have to keep that in mind before, even if you're attracted to one, if you have no skills in that department, I don't recommend necessarily getting involved unless you can hire an expert before doing it.
Yeah, there's definitely more involved than one thinks, right? About those kind of strategies, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about major gifts. And, a lot of people, what's defined as a major gift. And I think for each organization, in my experience, it really is unique to that organization. A major gift for one organization might be $1,000, and for another, it might be $50,000. So talk to me a little bit about major gifts.
Sure, no problem. So exactly like you say, the major gift definition, there is no specific number. So it really depends on looking at your, let's say, existing donation list and seeing who has given the most. I usually use the 10 to 15% mark, but once again, that depends. I did a donor analysis of an organization, and the top 10, 15 left out a lot of people that were giving quite a lot. So I felt it was useful to include maybe a lower amount, because when you're building a major donation campaign, people don't realize that there's a huge planning process in advance, so that once you launch it publicly, you're much more likely to reach your objectives. Because the worst thing you could do for a major gift campaign is to not reach your objective. So all these people got excited about allowing you to do your project, and then you miss your mark. And then it's like, well, then did you actually need that amount? No. And then it kind of be very disappointing, and it ruins the momentum that you built up during this major donation campaign. So often with major gifts or a major gift campaign, what we recommend is doing a silent phase of your campaign first. So what you'll do is you do some analysis, look at your existing donors. There's different ways that you can do some research and seeing. So there's like platforms that exist that you can, I call it snooping, but it's legal snooping. Like, this is all information that's publicly available, and understanding who have these people donated to in the past. For example, with foundations, you can easily use different platforms like Grant Connect by Imagine Canada to really look at their entire donation history and see where have they given to in the past, or similar organizations, and how much have they given. Are they giving $10,000 to some organizations similar to you, but they're only giving you $1,000 every year? Then you can kind of see, okay, there's a potential to get more from this organization. So doing that research process can be really important to building up your major gift campaign. And also building up your individuals in your organization towards major gifts. Once again, building them up towards in that pyramid. That's a lot about stewardship. So getting to know your donors, which ones are the strongest prospects. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the people that give the most. There are some organizations, for example, that have monthly donors that have been giving $20, $30 a month, but they've been giving for 10 years. These people have shown enormous commitment and loyalty to your organization. Hopping on a personalized call with them and seeing like, thank you so much for your 10 years of support. We would love to hear like what motivated you to support our work for this long. Maybe collect their individual story through different storytelling, collecting platforms that you can use. And then you can use that donor story to also inspire others. But by building that personal connection with them, maybe you can say, we're working on this specific project that hasn't been made public yet. And we're looking for different people to get involved in the ideation process and maybe also like funding the project. And who knows, maybe they'll feel so called to your cause and it'll also make them feel very special. When people feel special towards your organization, that they're in like the elite club, they're in the special club, they can tend to have that more idea of like, I'm funding something before anyone else knows about it. And that's also something that can be very useful to building up your major gifts within your organization.
So let me ask you, Katherine, when you're thinking about major gifts, are you thinking all capital campaign or are you thinking an ongoing major gifts work as well?
It really depends. You can have a capital campaign or just a major gift campaign that's specifically for more, you need to invest in like a certain project, or even a peer-to-peer has the same type of structure in the sense that you're doing a prospect search first towards building a big project. But you also have just your annual operational, for example, major gifts that you have to give them special attention in some shape or form. And you want to bring more people into the major gifts club, if I can call it that way. But always keeping in mind that any donor, you never know, unless you know them personally, their capacity to give more. So always making sure to build good relationships with them, keeping people posted about what's going on, and trying to get to know your donors as much on a personal level as possible. Even if that means calling your like middle donors once a year, you have a list of people that you want to call just to say thank you and to say, hey, we would love to have your feedback about how we're doing. That personal call, you never know how far it can go. And then maybe the next time they give, they'll hop onto the major gifts campaign. So there's like the two approaches of, like you say, a capital campaign where you do the prospects, the searching, and bringing people into reaching a big, larger objective. Or there's also just this stewardship process involved in getting non-major gift donors to become major gift donors.
Talk to us a little bit about services like iWave and the benefits of those types of things.
I am a big fan of data, and I can get lost in platforms like iWave because I find it fascinating, the type of information you can use. So I'll give you a little case study of two different reasons why I use iWave for donation campaigns. So I had one where it was a small local organization that was doing a peer-to-peer campaign, and they were looking for sponsors or more corporate donations. So they asked me to make a prospect list of local companies that might be interested in giving. So through iWave, I use Google Maps to first look at what companies that are kind of related to their cause, which was children, what companies in that area might be interested in donating or sponsoring the organization. So I found these different companies, and then through iWave, you are able to search up a company and find out their donation history. Have they given in the past? Of course, they don't have all of the information, but it gives you a good idea. It also helps you identify who works for this company. So it's basically a data mining platform, which will collect a whole bunch of information on the internet that's kind of sometimes hard to find and place it all together to facilitate the research process. So it's really easy for me to identify based on, let's say there was a clothing store that had given donations in the past to, let's say, the Children's Hospital, or had given donations to the Cancer Society, or had given donations to anything. I could tell how much had they given, what would be a potential donation we can ask from them, and then who am I going to ask for this donation. So you can sometimes look into see who's the the development director, for example, or who's the CEO, and you can tell then with them, you can look at their donation history. So it's really a rabbit hole. I'm going to let you guys know in advance. You can go so deep into figuring out who does what, which is fascinating, can be very useful in the research component of any building up a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
The second example I can use is to, when you're doing a major gifts campaign, or when you're looking to see who are your good prospects for potentially a capital campaign, is you can also do the same type of thing, but for individuals. So I was doing an analysis of this organization's 10,000 donors, and I just took the top 15, 20, and I would take a couple and just pop them into iWave, and just to see the types of people that come up, and to see, are they giving less or more? And you can get more information on where do they work? Maybe they have ties to a company that is in line with your values or with your cause, that you can then ask them, oh, like have to be subtle about it, but you can contact the company and then know that they're a donor, and it gives you more of a chance kind of to get that donation when you already have a contact with them. So the usefulness of these platforms is to help with the research process in prospecting for potential donors, or analyzing your internal donor list to see who can become a donor, a major donor, or a prospect for a specific project that you're working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautifully said. And I know legacy giving, we want to touch on that. We have about 2 or 3 minutes. Just touch on legacy giving a little bit for those that may not be familiar. So
legacy giving is really the last gifts that someone can give to you as a donor. And a lot of people, once again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's because donations and fundraising is so relational oriented. You have to really make sure you're building up a good relationship with your donors before bringing up these asks. And you also have to make sure you understand the legalities behind a lot of these legacy gifts. I'm not a specific legacy gift expert, because it's a different ball game. You have to understand that, for example, if someone donates their house to you, you might also be taking on a lot of their responsibilities that you might not necessarily want as an organization. So this is the type of program that you need usually a lawyer to help you build up. When do you accept different legacy gifts, and when do you not? What do we accept? What don't we? So you really have to understand that there's a big policy that needs to be built around these types of programs. I'll give you a little example. When I was working at the Montreal SPCA, this person had donated their house to the Montreal SPCA, and the only criteria that they had asked was that their 2 cats be adopted out together. So you can sometimes have these really cute stories that the person didn't mean that the house was going to be used by the SPCA. They just sold it, and then they were able to get the money from it. But once again, do you have the internal capacity to manage selling a house? How much is it going to cost to manage that legacy gift? So all of these things need to be taken into consideration, but a lot of organizations that have built up great legacy gifts have really, really reaped the benefits, but it takes time. And I recommend any small organizations, unless you have internal capacity to do that, to be careful. I do have a report for those that are interested that was written by PhiLab that explores the capacity for legacy gifts for small and medium-sized organizations. It is in French though, so I'm not sure how many people are comfortable reading French, but I could share that. And there's also another organization that the Association of Professionals of Gift Planning, that might be great resources for people who are interested in legacy gifts. So in any follow-up email, I can make you a quick list of resources that I would recommend reaching out to.
Mm-hmm, perfect. And I'll tell you, I did legacy giving for about 15 years, and I still get emails once in a while from the staff that a legacy gift that I worked on 15 years ago has just been realized. And, it might be $750,000, or I did sell a house once for somebody. Mm-hmm. And it is incredibly rewarding work, and it does reap a lot of benefits for sure. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit. We're going to get some questions for you, but before, just as we're asking people to put those questions in there for Katherine, let's talk a little bit about analysis and about data, things like second gift conversion, long-term donor value, segmentation, pieces like that. Walk us through a little bit about what we should be analyzing.
So there's different characteristics of a donor that you can analyze. So of course, there's a lot of demographics that can help in understanding who your who your donors are, which can also then inform how you're going to approach these donors. So of course, age makes a huge difference on how you're going to necessarily approach them. And there's a lot of reports out there, like the one by Episode that it analyzes more for Quebec, but there's Imagine Canada that'll do a lot of reports on the trends in different generations and how they give. So for example, the Generation Z, so the youngest generation, they're very into funding the environment, but they don't necessarily give big donations. So you can use your donor personas, if you analyze your donors, and you can kind of identify who they are, and then you can identify which fundraising strategies might be best suited to people that are supporting your organization. Other things that I often recommend is, yes, the donation amount is useful, but also the average donation, because there's sometimes a donor that in the last donation campaign maybe gave a smaller amount, but if you look at their lifetime value, they have given a lot more than some donors that have given just one time. So making sure to not just judge a donor on their last donation, making sure to look at their lifetime value and to also recognize the importance and value of loyalty and commitment to your organization throughout their donor story with you. And I've also often looked at obviously the recency of their donation. When was the last time they donated? Let's say if a donor has given maybe a $5,000 gift in the past, but it's been 5 years that you haven't heard from them. If you just send them a cold call email to ask, hey, would you like to make another $5,000 donation? Most likely it's too cold. So there's also a lot of things that you have to consider about maybe warming up that lead first. So frequency, recency, and the amount of their donations are 3 criteria that I often analyze before, and obviously the demographics before doing any form of strategy around how to approach a donor.
Absolutely. And I'm just putting something in the chat here as well. I think this I'm going to make sure it goes to everybody. This is a company that I started with a business partner about 15, 16 years ago, and we do donor analysis. So what's really important here is there is a sample, and I like to call this R&D, not research and development, but rob and duplicate. So feel free to take it and steal it, and steal the opportunity there to see what kinds of things you can measure. And Katherine's done a great job of talking about some of those today, but just another little resource for people here today. The questions are coming in very quickly, Katherine, so we want to get to some of those right now. And Charlie, my friend Charlie's here. The question is, do you have any insights into how the age of a potential donor affects fundraising tactics? We just sort of touched on that a second ago. For example, I know a lot of people under 30 often don't like talking on the phone, which is true. Katherine, talk to me a little bit about Charlie's question.
Yes, of course. It's really funny because now I feel like there's this new thing with young people that you have to text them first. Can I call you? Yeah. And then you call them. If not, it's like, oh my, they feel offended that you're expecting to just answer the phone all the time, which I'm like, that's the whole point of having a phone. But anyway, yeah. And maybe I'm a bit old school in that sense too. But yes, for sure. The age of the donor. So for example, we know that older populations tend to really enjoy physical mail. But surprisingly, I actually did donor analysis recently, and there was also this 35 to 45 really enjoyed mail as well in that particular organization. I wonder if it's a nostalgia that we usually are so used to receiving just bills by mail now. So when you receive like a nice piece of mail, you're like, yay. Exactly. So I definitely think it depends on also what is not just the age, but what is your purpose with your communication. So for example, sending a thank you by mail might be really good to everyone, but sending a solicitation, not so much. But so older population tends to really still enjoy mailing campaigns. Younger generations tend to enjoy more the social media, the emails, the phones. I've had success with definitely over 35, 40, I would say, because they're used to talking on the phone and they're not as shy as our younger counterparts nowadays. Right. But of course you can, there's so many things I would like to share with you guys about these reports and statistics that you can use to inform your strategies. And they really show, they've done populations like all of Canada by province, based on the age, based on gender, based on many different factors. So I can maybe add that in any follow-up.
Sure, that's a great idea.
To see.
Katie is asking she's suggesting, which is really great idea, a webinar about tax receipts and what we can receive and who we can give receipts to. Katie, that's a fantastic idea from Smiths Falls. So we'll take that idea, and I know Hannah and Owen are listening very carefully, and maybe that's an idea that we share for 2023. We're always coming up with great webinar ideas, so we're happy to take that one on. We've got a question here as well from Jean St. Pierre. Can you briefly go over what are the requirements and costs associated to become a charitable organization from a nonprofit organization? Great question.
Great question. And it really, one of the first things that I always recommend is, are you ready to do a lot of paperwork? And it's a process that's very administratively heavy for a lot of organizations. So make sure that you're ready to embark on it. And if it's actually in your best interest to do so, sometimes having that nimble capacity of just being a nonprofit can actually be more advantageous for you than going through the whole process of charitable status. So first of all, you have to make sure that what your cause can fit into what is considered as charitable in Canada. So there's 4 different categories. There's religion, education, alleviation of poverty, and then the wonderful 4th category of, and everything else that fits under the definition of charity, which is, it just proof that the Canadian charitable status laws haven't been updated since 18 something. So you really have to make sure, because a lot of environmental organizations, especially, there's any advocacy used to be very, very difficult. The law has changed in 2018. There's still a lot of scared people that are not so sure about how they can get their advocacy covered in there. So I would really recommend delving into what your activities are and looking over the CRA, sorry, I'm thinking in French, the CRA criteria to make sure that your activities fall under those categories. That's like the #1 thing I would recommend doing, as well as seeing if it's something that you'd be actually interested in getting involved in. The rest of the costs, it kind of depends on your internal team. Do you have any like experts that would be able to support you guys? I often recommend finding a lawyer to make sure that they can go, that knows about the CRA regulations, so that it'll facilitate the process. Because if you don't have it revised, then you have to send it again, and then they get refused. And the time, it can really, really push off your ability to get the status. There are a lot of consultants that are experts in this process that can really help and are worth the investment to make sure you get your charitable status at the end. I don't know if I would be able to identify a cost, because it depends on how much information you already collected and how well organized you already are as an organization. Do you already have like an annual budget plan where you can do projections of how you're going to be doing your fundraising? Do you have information on your mission, on your vision, on your values? How organized are you already? That will depend how much it'll cost to do and how much time it'll take to do the whole process. I hope that answers your question.
Muted. Thank you so much, Katherine. That was really, really helpful. We have about 10 minutes. Happy to take any more questions from anybody as well, but certainly I've got lots for you. So in terms of fundraising, we often think about sort of that, that first gift and then that second gift conversion. Can you talk to me about second gift conversion and some of the strategies, maybe from a stewardship perspective?
So when you're trying to get that second gift, so it's like a second date, right? So you have to make the first one, of course, the first one is very important, but the second one almost even more so, because that'll kind of see if the person is worth kind of continuing a relationship with. And there's many different strategies you can use to do so. And often you have to analyze, ideally make a list of how was their first donation given? So for example, if a donor sends in a check by mail, I don't recommend necessarily sending them a text message or sending them an email. If this donor really enjoyed the mailing, then try to use the second gift opportunity to continue in that direction. Of course, doing an individualized strategy for every donor that gave you $50 is extremely time consuming. So of course, you can group these these donors into categories and send mass campaigns. So this is very important when you are building up your CRM or your database of donors, to try to identify the format in which these people, or how this donation was received, so you can build up a relationship based on their original donation tactic. Another, for the second gift, I often recommend, let's talk about, let's say, major gifts, for example. If they already gave you one donation and you're looking to build up a second, try to get to know the donor. And if you know anybody in your organization that has a connection to them. So I use LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. It is my favorite social media ever. I don't use any other ones almost anymore, because you can really tell, let's say if you find your donor on LinkedIn, you're able to identify who they are because of X, Z reason, if you can. Then you can see, do we know anyone on our board? Do we know anyone in our volunteer team that knows them? Having a connection, even if it's through a second person, to do a warm introduction can be what makes it or breaks it. So it's really important to do that and to do it in the right context. So often, let's say we're once again looking into, how did this person first come into your pyramid? How did they first come into your organization? If it was, let's say, a peer-to-peer campaign about a specific project, why not try to group your donors together based on what cause they were specifically supporting? Was it a biodiversity oriented? Maybe they're really interested in biodiversity, but they won't necessarily be interested in anything around fossil fuels or anything around renewable energy. So trying to also ask the second gift based on their interests can be also very useful into making sure you're personalizing your approach for a second gift.
Yeah, beautifully said. And, when I think about CRMs and the it's like asking somebody, what kind of car do you want, right? Do you want a Chevy? Do you want a Cadillac, or something in between? What are some of your favorite CRMs?
I've honestly used more smaller ones that are, especially like I should have written all the lists here, because I have so many that I've been reaching out to. Because I really try to curate when I'm doing suggestions for my organizations I work with and my clients. I really try to curate based on their needs. So there's oh god, I'm having huge blanks of all these names.
I'd use Keela quite a bit. So Keela is based here in Canada, which is also a bonus in terms of where the data is stored, which is something we tend not to think about. Razor's Edge, I think, is the granddaddy of them all. A lot of people sort of think about that. That's the Cadillac version, and smaller organizations that are joining us today wouldn't need that. A Keela would be fine. A Sumac would be okay. A Donor Perfect. Any one of those can definitely do the job.
Yeah, there's a lot of I feel like nonprofit tech has been exploding in the last couple of years, and there's so many like tech solutions. Just make sure when you are doing your analysis of first and making a list of what are your needs and what are your nice to haves, to make sure that you're making a decision not based on when they're going to try to sell you their platform. They're going to make their platform look so amazing. They can do all these things, but maybe that's not actually what you need as an organization. So it's important to do some form of checklist of what do I absolutely need in this organization? And then also what would be nice to have, but not necessary. Because and make sure whatever you choose that you're able to export that data and be able to use it externally. Because if not, when you're going to be, let's say, eventually you grow out of the smaller, simple CRM that you're using, then how are you going to transfer that into your next one? So always that's the one thing that I would say is a criteria that everyone should look for, the capacity to export the data afterwards.
I just took one of my, I have 8 strategy clients that I work with, and I just took one of them and moved them into Canada Helps. Canada Helps has a new CRM. It's being very, very helpful for many nonprofits that are small enough to be using Canada Helps anyway. So it's a matter of then, the other donations that come in going through that platform. So Canada Helps has done a really great job over there. Jacob O'Connor and the team over there have really taken that to the next level. So that's another option for people that are looking for something. You might already be in Canada Helps, and you might have another CRM to bring it all under one roof, which is very helpful. That might be an option as well. Go back in time, Katherine, and tell your younger self some fundraising advice that you wish you had, maybe, when you started.
Don't cry when someone says no. So
that sounds like me.
I'm a Cancer, so I'm very sensitive and I cry a lot. So I remember when I was first doing fundraising and I was often face to face, I just I would take everything so personally and it would just destroy me. And I would like melt, and then I would be in a bad mood the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And I kind of with time kind of built up this like, well, they're allowed saying no, but also maybe I'm not asking properly. So I really tried to make sure the energy that I have when I do fundraising has to be on par with theirs. So if I see someone that is super high energy and they're bubbly, obviously I try to mimic their behavior, and it tends to be inspiring to talk like that. But you always have to make sure to match the other person's energy, and then they're going to be able to hear you more just because you're speaking in the same way they are. So I'm a very bubbly person. I tend to move around a lot, use my hands. But if I see, let's say in face-to-face, that the person is more calm, more reserved, I try to calm myself down and try to match more the donor's energies. That was something that has helped me so much and has improved my conversions by so much, just by paying attention to what the donor is actually saying. Are they actually saying no when they're telling you, oh, I don't know, I already give to 3 organizations? That's not a no.
Mm-hmm.
So don't take it as a no until they say, no, I do not want to donate to you.
Mm-hmm.
So always trying to be solution oriented, something that my partner tells me all the time, is stop taking no's personally and just be solution oriented. Okay, they give monthly to many organizations, no problem. Would you be comfortable just giving a one-time gift for now and we can revise the monthly donation next year? Okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Or maybe $30 a month is too much for them. Okay, how about half of that, $15 a month? What do you think of that? Always trying to find solutions and not taking it personally has helped me so much in converting more donors and also just having more fun with fundraising in general.
Absolutely. Great advice. We have a couple minutes left. What other resources would you suggest that people visit? We've shared a few today. Imagine Canada, you mentioned, as well as a great resource. The
Charity
Village, the Rideau Hall Foundation has a great review, the 30 years of giving history. I rely on that a lot as well. Where else can you send us, Katherine, for any resources?
I might be biased in saying this, but FeeLab. So we are, so I work at FeeLab, which is a research on specifically grant making. So if you're if you're really curious about understanding more about grant making and where are they at in their trends and what they're thinking about, FeeLab. So I can send the link in the chat as well, and in a follow-up. So FeeLab, they have so many reports. We have a podcast. We have infographics. We have blog articles. There's a lot of content around who's giving to the environment. For example, we did a webinar on fossil fuel divestment. So it's not just on fundraising, but there's a lot of really great content there that can be a great resource for a lot of organizations that are dipping into the grant making sector. This can also help identify potential funders. So if you're looking at an article about how this environmental funder does their granting, well, then that can become a potential funder for your organization. So that's a big one that I would recommend.
Fantastic. Wow. That hour was like that, flew by in no time. Big thank you, Katherine McDonald. Thanks so much for joining us today. And you can reach out to Katherine at Just Because Consulting and get any more tips and tricks from her. Big thank you always to Owen. Thank you for everything you do, Owen. We couldn't do it without Hannah Rockburn as well, but we couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much for spending time with us. We're getting ready for April, if you can believe it. We're getting ready for April already. Watch for the details about that webinar. I'm Sam Laprade. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, and we really appreciate your time. Karina's just asking, what was the last link that Katherine shared? That's FeeLab. That's the grant.
It's a research network.
Research. I couldn't think of the word research.
There's tons of resources.
There you go. So she's got lots there for you. Thanks everybody for spending time with us, and be kind to yourself when you're fundraising. It's tough work, everyone. Take care.